Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, and here is Finster. Sort of. Yes, doing her usual. Hey, Finster, you excited? Oh, she's terribly excited. We're here for the Haydn Symphony Crusade, and you can see how up she is for it. Yes, okay. Well, we'll see. Maybe she'll become more alert when she hears some of the extraordinarily thrilling music we're about to play. We're up to Symphony number 87 in A major. Now, this is the last of the 6 Paris symphonies that he wrote for concerts in the French capital, to be conducted by the Chevalier de Saint-Georges and patronized by Marie Antoinette. And, oh, it was a big deal. And these symphonies are a big deal. But here's the quirky bit. As is so often the case with classical music, the piece with the highest number is not necessarily the first composed. Remember, Haydn's London Symphony number 104, his last symphony, was published as number 2 shortly after his lifetime. So, Anyway, 87 was the first of the lot to be composed. And that's interesting. It's the least popular of all of them, probably. The least frequently played. It is the simplest. It has, in some ways, the most schematic kind of outline. That doesn't mean the music isn't marvelous. In fact, the slow movement is one of the most beautiful things that Haydn ever wrote. I mean, it's got great music in it. It's full of, it's a masterpiece, like all of these symphonies. You don't have to worry about that. But comparatively, it has a simplicity of outline and structure, which leads us to suspect that Haydn might have been trying to introduce the set of symphonies with this work. He didn't have to introduce himself. I mean, the whole reason he got the commission in the first place was because he was the most famous composer in Europe already, and his music had been published and played in Paris, and he was all the rage. So people knew Haydn, and they knew his style, or they thought they did, because publishers were passing off all kinds of other composers as Haydn. So there was a lot of fake Haydn floating around, and imitations and things. But the bottom line is, there is a sense in which these 6 symphonies were composed in a group as a single thought. He actually wrote them over 2 years, 3 per year. So you could look at it that way as well. But as we've been talking about these symphonies, we've been mentioning things that movements have in common, and that also there are ideas that Haydn exploits in these symphonies that all 6 works have in common, or that some works have in common. The ending, the 3-note ending, which this symphony has. You hear that in 4 out of 6. He doesn't have to do everything everywhere, but he does a lot in most. And so I just think it's very interesting as we talk about this symphony, for all of its individual clarity of thought. I mean, it's almost like schematically clear the way it's written. I mean, the things that it does, because he's going to do them again later. And he's going to do them later additively, in addition to introducing other elements and things. So, yes, the later symphonies are going to somehow be more complex, but not better. You know what I mean? Because I love this symphony, particularly the finale, which has just one of the most fresh, beautiful tunes anybody ever wrote in the world. So we're going to listen to this as an individual masterpiece, all for itself, that is self-consistent and coherent, and it does have all of those wonderful interrelated things that Haydn does in his symphonies, and in these in particular. But it also is a bit of an introduction in certain of its elements to the entire set, which need to be thought of as in a single opus of six works that have a familial relationship. So this symphony has no introduction. It begins with a fabulously pumping theme with an incredibly mobile bass line. Fabulous bass lines. Haydn always has fabulous bass lines, doesn't he? And also, he often introduces themes that have 2 parts, a top and a bottom, and this is one of those. The bottom's going chuk, 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 chuk. It's like an engine pumping the music along. But the theme is very interesting. It's just an arpeggio, and it involves something that we heard used very, very frequently in the previous symphony, number 86, which was actually the second to the last. The actual last was the first one, 82, with the bear. That came last. But the last two are the ones with trumpets and drums, and 86 has, as you may recall, what I called suffixes and prefixes, and then a rising three-note triad. Well, this does too, but it's the first of them. It's yeah, da 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 da. I mean, you remember the finale of 86? Da 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 dum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum bum. Remember that? Da 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 ba 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 ba. 86. Well, here, yeah, da 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 da. It's just an arpeggio up and down. And Haydn's going to do a lot with these little three-note arpeggios up and down. And he's going to do a lot with little repeated note stuttering figures, prefixes and suffixes added to his themes of all types. So we're starting right in the middle of, with some very pregnant ideas. And then there's a sort of round that happens after that as the orchestra just repeats the same thing, adding instruments each time. And you should remember that too, because that's going to come back in the finale of this particular symphony. It's not necessarily something he does elsewhere. So that's the first subject. And the second subject is just a scale. Now, Haydn is not spending a lot of time in these symphonies on scale tunes. He uses scale. Everyone uses scales all the time. But this is da 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 da. He's telling us that he's going to be doing things with incredibly simple ideas. Unbelievably simple ideas, and making fabulous things out of it. And he does it here. He's going to do it in this symphony. So I want to play you the complete exposition, which has those two basic subjects, with the Austro-Hungarian Haydn Orchestra under Adam Fischer. And this is just a wonderful doorway to the 6 symphonies to come, even though we listen to it as number 87, the last of the 6. Strange, isn't it? I mean, no one, of course, ever asked Haydn in what order he wanted them done. If he had any preference at all, we don't know. So here's the exposition. It's fresh, it's lively, it's exciting, and that curious second subject, so simple, so basic, so, well, in the development section, it gets itself into quite a conundrum. Now, the development section follows the exposition in exact order. It's like a repeat of the exposition, although it's mostly in minor keys. It has some very extraordinary harmonies. And one thing that happens is that the most extraordinary harmonic digression happens in connection with this very simple second subject. You ask yourself, how complicated can things get for a scale? Well, you're going to hear just how far afield that scale can wander. And in fact, it gets so out of sync harmonically with where the music is supposed to be that it finally just stops dead. And there's this long pause. And it's the most dramatic part of the entire movement. And actually, Haydn, as you know, was a master of silence, of the pause. And we're going to hear his incredibly fabulous sense of timing and use of silence as a dramatic tactic in all 6 of these symphonies, somewhere or other. But this here, he does it in a way which is sort of most obvious, because that little scale peters out. There's a long silence. You think something's wrong, it's so long. Then the music starts up again with the same scale, and it somehow works its way back very quickly to the recapitulation. So I want you to hear the whole development section and leading into the recapitulation, just so you get a sense of it. Because again, Haydn is, in a sense, introducing us to things that will be happening later in different contexts, but here in a way which is really, really, like everything in this symphony, as direct as a slap in the face. He's just like, yeah, I can do this with interesting harmony and silence and use of it dramatically. And he's really sort of laying down the gauntlet, I would say. So here is the development leading into the recap. So you can listen to the rest of the movement yourself, and you'll get a sense of, how much fun it is. It's just lovely, lovely music, and childlike in its simplicity, but very mature in its sophisticated handling of its material. Now, the slow movement, it's just gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful movements Haydn wrote. And the opening theme is audibly related to the opening of the whole symphony. Because, when your opening theme is an arpeggio, it's very easy to create family resemblances among themes. If the opening theme is da 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 dum bum 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 ba da 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 bum bum ba bum bum, the opening melody of the slow movement is just a 4-note motive that's very, very similar, just slowed down, and I'm sure you'll hear it. You'll get a sense of that familial resemblance. But the key to this movement is Haydn's handling of woodwind instruments. The main theme is an exquisite oboe solo. The flute has major decorative and solo passages, and then there's a giant pause and a wind cadenza for the high woodwinds, for the flute and the oboes. It's very, very beautiful, very unusual, but it may have been a homage to or homage, because they're Paris symphonies, to the French Symphonia Concertante tradition. A Symphonia Concertante is basically it's a symphony, but it has clearly defined recurring solos for various instruments, usually woodwinds, an oboe, a flute, and often a violin and a cello, something like that, which is what Haydn's own Symphony Concertante that he wrote when he was in England, which we'll talk about later in this series. But Haydn does that in his single formal work in the field. But many of his works have concertante elements, and this movement has brilliant ones. And that's really what Haydn's out to capture. First, there's that family resemblance to the opening of the symphony, but more than that, it's the use of solo instruments, something that we will also hear in several of the upcoming symphonies, won't we? Yes, but this is again, it's done with extraordinary directness. He's saying, listen to what I'm doing with the woodwinds. And you can be sure that the Paris players would have appreciated this. I'm going to play you the whole first part of the movement. The form of the movement is what they usually call song form, or sonata without development. Most of Mozart's slow movements have a similar shape to this movement, where you play a big parade of themes that serve as a potential gigantic sonata exposition. But then instead of a development, you basically write just a very short lead back, something very brief, and then you just do the whole A section again, but embellished, enriched in various ways, not repeated exactly. And that's what we get here. But the solos are all in place in the second part as well as the first, only enriched even more. And wow, what lovely, long breath, sexy melodies we get here. Here you go. Totally exquisite, absolutely beautiful, and actually unusual a little bit for Haydn too, because as you know, Haydn likes working with motives, and he also likes writing slow movements and where in which the long melodies only gradually assemble themselves, and he has fragments and bits of things and pauses, and this is almost unusual for being Mozartian in its handling of these gorgeous vocal melodies. So that's the slow movement. Now, the minuet. We don't really need to deal with the beginning of the minuet. The minuet is another one of those themes that you could very easily relate to the opening of the symphony. If you want to, I'm not going to play it because you can listen to it on your own. But the middle section, the trio, is one of those timbral resemblance things that Haydn does. Quite often, as you know, in earlier symphonies and in these, he will use certain instrumental sonorities as ways to create unity because movements will share them. Well, I mean, the slow movement was basically an oboe concerto, and it's solo, and it's in the solos that Haydn gives to that instrument. And in the minuet, the trio section, the middle section, is a very virtuosic, I mean, really beautifully lyrical oboe solo that rises to the highest note that Haydn ever wrote for the instrument. It's a showpiece for the principal oboe player, and here it is. There you go. So we get to the finale. The finale is a plain development of the opening of the symphony, but it's a little different. What Haydn is doing here, and it's really a wonderful musical transformation. You know, when we did thematic transformations, remember we did those? We're going to do more of them too, don't worry. In works by certain composers, and we talked about Haydn. The opening of this symphony is really as simple in terms of its musical materials as can be. It's just an arpeggio, right? Bum, 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 bum. But it's an arpeggio, just major chords spread out. And the second subject is just a scale. Da, 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 da. I mean, these are the simplest, most basic musical elements. But in the finale, Haydn is telling us that he's going to take these basic elements and make beautiful melodies. That opening arpeggio becomes one of the freshest, most, I mean, the word is vernal, one of those words that pops up periodically, but yes, vernal freshness. It's like the morning dew. It's the awakening of something fabulous, extraordinarily new and different and precious. And I just hear it that way. I love this tune. It is plainly related to the opening of the first movement, as is the following passage, which I'm going to play you in a minute. But first, I want you to hear the whole exposition. It's a monothematic sonata form movement, the finale here. The second subject is plainly based on a bit of the opening melody, and here it is. Gosh, that's beautiful, isn't it? It's really, really something special. I don't know. And I think it's more special because it is a transformation of the very opening of the symphony. The opening of the symphony is rugged and vivacious and all of those things, but it's not really a melody. It's a motive. It's a rudimentary object. This is its development, its fully evolved theme, or its helpmate, its female version. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's just lyrically glorious, I think. Lovely and marvelous. Now, the other thing you may want to notice is that this theme and the opening of the whole symphony have the same structure. Melodies, are a little different. Obviously, one is a development of the other. But remember, da 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 da, the first movement. And here you get da 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 da, with same sort of pile on as the instruments get louder and enter one section after the other until the full orchestra is doing it. It is obviously the same thing. And I put together a little comparison just so you can hear the opening of the finale followed after a brief pause by the opening of the whole symphony and get the sense that it's the same theme, it's the same structure, the same concept. Here it is. However, there's always a however. However, you may have noticed that in the finale, the round and round additive bit, that is one of the motives that virtually all of these symphonies share in abundance. I mean, remember 84? Ya da 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 dum bum 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 ba da 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 dum bum ba da 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 dum bum ba, right? Or the finale of the Bear Symphony. And now we have this is not accidental. This is Haydn creating certain motives that he's going to use as building blocks, and he uses them very frequently throughout these 6 symphonies, and that one particularly. And we've talked about that one a lot. It's in all of these pieces, just about, somewhere or other, and in a prominent way, in a way that forces you to recognize it. At the end of the theme, end of tunes, at the end of a melody, at a cadence, at a place where it's a solo, isolated idea, you hear it all over the place. And so Haydn is starting to identify some of the motives that are going to appear in all 6 of the symphonies that follow. And I think it must have been really quite marvelous for people to come and hear each new one and see how it somehow adds to our knowledge. It builds on what we've heard before. Of course, you have to remember, people, in order to hear these pieces, have to see them live. And of course, they were only hearing them in Paris in one place. But there were piano reductions and all kinds of ways that you could play them at home. So people could study them and they could learn and see what Haydn was actually up to. Now, the development section of the finale follows very closely on the development section of the first movement, being basically a transformation of the ideas in the exposition to a minor key, and leading into the recapitulation. And the coda introduces Haydn's classic ending, the 3 repeated chords, chung, 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 right? You've heard those. Here it is, the coda. So there you have it. It's a beautiful symphony in its own right, but also a genuine musical calling card. I mean, it really is. And I think the better you get to know these symphonies, the more you're going to spot the resemblances between them. Some of you have already mentioned them in the comments, things that I didn't point out, things that you've noticed in comparing one to the other. And you're right. You're absolutely right to do that, because Haydn really did conceive of his music as a whole, each work as a whole, and groups of work which share families of themes, but never repeat literally. He's always using his materials in a different way. He doesn't repeat himself. He doesn't, rest on his laurels. He's always doing something new with this material, but you recognize the material. And that's what makes it so marvelous, and that's what makes these 6 symphonies, one of the things that makes these 6 symphonies so extraordinary. And I hope you've enjoyed this series of 6 videos on the Paris symphonies. After this, everything Haydn wrote would usually come in groups or commissions, although 88 and 89, well, 90, 91, 89, 90, 91 may have been a group. They're groups, because he wrote more for Paris after the Paris symphonies. He wrote a few more, and then, of course, we had the London symphonies. 90, 91, 92, I believe, were Paris commissions. 88 and 89, I'm not so sure. It's a little bit fuzzy in terms of, our understanding of the biographical details of what exactly was going on. But from that point on, Haydn knew he had a foreign market, a major foreign market. He had every foreign market he could sell to. And he sold to all of them, all at once, all usually on an exclusive basis, or so they thought in the jolly days before copyright. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed these videos, and we're going to keep on listening till we get to the end. We are really getting there. And the next symphony, number 88, is a piece that is one of my all-time favorite works in the history of the universe, and one of the pieces that turned me on to classical music. And that's, oh my God, it's just amazing. And Finster over here saw no reason to get up and spend any extra time with us. Did you, honey? No, it's okay. All right. Yeah, she's out. Oh boy, she was running around today in the basement. They like exploring and doing all that stuff. Anyway, I'll see you next time for Symphony number 88. Oh God, the excitement is just too much. Take care.